Welcome to WIZOnet, WIZO's professional business network. And today in our lockdown conversations, we are hosting Joshua Gerstler. He's a chartered financial planner from the Orchard practice. Hi, Josh. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You basically specialize in pensions, right?
I specialize in all areas of financial planning, and pensions is included in that.
Okay. I was reading about pensions, as a run-up to our conversation. And one of the things that I know also from personal experience is that on top of the government scheme, many people invest in private, pension schemes for their future, or any other investments that are basically supposed to be there for the time when we don't need to work anymore, or we want to stop working. With the current situation and the financial effect on all the markets around the world, have there been any effects on those investments, whether it is defined as a pension or whether it's a private investment for the future?
Yeah, I think you've made a very good point there that you could have a pension for your future, or you could have any other type of investment. The most important thing is that you have a plan for your future. In terms of the impacts of coronavirus, well, the markets across the world are down. So there was a big fall in markets initially when things came to light, and a couple of subsequent falls. So globally, markets would have been down about 30% at one point. Now, so from an individual's point of view, you'd probably only feel that fully if you are wholly invested in a particular market. And most people aren't. So for instance, if the FTSE 100, the top 100 companies in the UK, was down 30%, and you were fully invested in that, you would be down 30%. But in terms of the short-term impact, unless you are selling, you haven't actually lost any money. And some people get a bit confused and they see stock markets down 30% and they think, I've lost 30%. Yeah. But on the flip side of that, when markets are up 30%, they haven't won 30%. So it's not a win or lose. There's only two prices that really count when it comes to investing, and whether that's a pension or elsewhere: the price you buy at and the price you sell at. Yeah. And anything in between is just noise, really.
That is true, but it is, as you said, most people react to the headline that they just read, to other headlines that are there in order to draw you in. So obviously it is written in a way to get your feelings and emotions running high, especially when you think about your money. And it is, we hope, a short-term effect. Do you think people that planned on selling because this is the time that they were supposed to retire, for them it's not about short term, for them it's happening now and this is when they are retiring, so maybe for them it's a more long-term effect. Are there any long-term effects, do you think, at the moment? As you can see, I know we can't predict anything, but just...
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, the people that are going to be most affected from an investment point of view, like you say, are the people that were planning on selling things now or in the very short term. Although most people who retire nowadays don't just sell all their investments or pensions in one go. Yeah. So people would have built up assets over their lifetime in a private pension or a workplace pension. And since the pension freedoms in 2015, you don't have to just cash it all in one go. People tend to enter now what's called drawdown, where you take the money out in phases as and when you need it. So the initial impact for them, if they needed to take some money out now, would be bad.
Yeah.
But as long as they weren't selling it all today, then they're okay. So it might be that they've got a pot. We'll just pick a round number. Let's say they've saved up £1 million for their retirement. Mm-hmm. Well, most people don't need £1 million on the first day of retirement. They might have a plan that says they need £20,000 this year, or 50,000, or 100,000. So it's only that portion that they sell where they're actually going to crystallize losses. And I say losses, it might be because they've been invested for a long time, that they're actually still making gains on that money that they're selling, just not as much as they might have done 2 months ago. So everyone else is probably less impacted because they've got longer to sell their money, but the people that will feel it the most are the people that need that money now. And to answer the second part of your question, what are the long-term implications? Well, there's two parts of that. There's the long-term implications in terms of global stock markets, and there's the long-term implications for individuals. So for global markets, if you believe in capitalism, in human ingenuity, people always grow, develop, innovate, come up with new products. And so the stock markets will continue to advance and grow in that direction with these ups and downs along the way. Yeah. So I think long term, it's just a blip in the continuing upward trend of finances. I think for individuals in the long term, the impact is minimal because, again, it's just one aspect. And we're in the middle of this now, so it feels like the end of the world. But we will come out of it, and then people will be back to normal.
When it comes to the long-term effects, as you said, whether it's the market or individuals, do you think that at the moment there are any kind of trends when it comes to the industries to look into making these investments, and others that were a sure thing all of a sudden lost its glory in a way, or it's too early to say?
I think it's very hard to accurately select an individual stock or an industry which you think is going to be the place to put your money for the future. So as a chartered financial planner, we're not stockbrokers. We won't try and sell a client a share. We wouldn't say buy Marks and Spencer's or buy Netflix or something like that. That's not what we would do. We would encourage people to have well-diversified global equity portfolios. But there will be industries that are impacted. So at the moment, the airline industry is going through a terrible time. Yeah. Hospitality is going through a terrible time. But that doesn't mean it won't recover. And anyone who thinks they can accurately predict that, if I'm blunt, is probably lying. It's a guess. Yeah. And even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah.
So they'll probably get one or two guesses right, but on the whole, it's impossible to always pick the right winner.
Thank you very much for that. And now, as we are wrapping up our conversation, I was wondering, regardless of the current situation we are in, what would be your suggestions for people to look into? What details should they pay attention to when they are looking for planning for their future, whether in general investment or specifically for pension?
So the first thing is to make sure you have a long-term financial plan. Don't just think, well, I've got £100 or £1,000 or whatever the amount is and think I should invest it. You need to have a reason for doing that. So is it for a holiday next year? Is it for a bar mitzvah in 10 years' time? A wedding, a house, retirement? You need to have a reason for wanting to do something with your money. Once you've got a reason, then it's much easier to come up with a portfolio to do that. Things to look at, I would say, don't pick individual stocks unless you really know what you're doing. And by really know what you're doing, I would include myself as someone who doesn't really know what they're doing in terms of individual stocks. Don't think many people do.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you choose a portfolio of funds. So that's when your money is in with other people's money. You have a fund manager who will invest your money in a globally diversified equity portfolio. So for the long term, equities or shares are where you will make your money, but a well diversified portfolio.
Okay.
The third thing I would say is probably to make sure when you do pick your funds that you pick ones that fees aren't too high. Well, it could be, yeah. Sometimes cheap is expensive and expensive is cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't mind paying fees to people as long as I'm getting value for that. And that's what you need to be looking at as well. So if someone's doing something for you for free, are you going to get the same level of service and value as someone who's charging you a reasonable fee for that? And I think every person will have a different interpretation of what value for money is, but it's got to be right for you personally.
Great. And I hope that your advice is going to help people with the way they are planning for their future, especially when the future is a bit uncertain. Thank you very, very much for your time. And thank you for joining us.